complaints need to go up, encouragements need to come down. I actually think what I have heard from people in our community is that complaints actually are filtering down. Encouragement is flowing up. And here's why I think that. I think, and this is, hot take here. There are some environments that are super unhealthy. And this is where I think church hurt starts to come into play.
Yeah. Welcome back to episode 52.
52. There are 52 weeks in a year.
Oh,
Did
wow.
you know that?
No, yes, I did. Not off the top of my head, I didn't, but way to throw us off right at the beginning.
Right out of the gate. That's my goal.
Well, the biggest thing I want to say right now is go buy your conference tickets. I have to say that right off the gate because we
do take credit cards.
We do take credit cards.
Yes.
Actually, we prefer credit cards.
Yeah.
It gets your cash here faster for you to save your seat because we have sold out. So, yeah, please pay quickly.
We have not sold out yet.
Register. Sorry, yes.
We have sold out in the past.
I'm just trying to scare y'all into buying now. We have sold out
It's
in
August.
the past. At the time of recording, who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe we will have sold out of something. Master classes go fast. Our tech tour to TBN Studios.
TBN. Oh,
ooh, I
trilogy,
can only, yeah, it's going to be amazing.
By the way, fun little fact about TBN. I think if I remember correctly, there's like 23 studios. Do you remember that?
Something like that.
Now,
Yeah,
they're not all huge, but there's like 5 or 6, and we probably won't get to see it all because it's an active studio, and but it's you were gonna get to see a lot. So.
Our team did see it. We saw the volume. I mean, we saw all of it.
There was like 3 volumes.
I had never seen like a full scale volume like that.
This is where I see the little like pop up coming up on the video of like what is a volume? So that's like a fun little post note for.
The new Star Wars have used volumes.
Oh, yes.
Yes. The Mandalorian was
May
shot.
the Force be with you.
It was a big deal on the volume for the first time. So,
was the movie, the recent Mandalorian movie, shot on a volume? I think.
Probably. My guess would be probably. I think it's now the standard, to shoot on the volume. Yeah. Flying everyone out to locations a little expensive.
All LED techs unite.
So. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we are talking to an amazing person today who I don't know her Star Wars knowledge, but Natalie Runion is beautiful and wonderful. And
multi-time SALT conference speaker.
Yeah. She always has the most intriguing topics in my mind. And unfortunately, you or Sojo have always been the one to get to do the podcast interviews with her. So.
I didn't do this one. I think Joseph Sojourner did. But I got a chance to sit with her a couple years ago. And just such rich story of what God's done in her heart and in her lives or in her life and in the way that she's able to minister to those who have experienced church hurt in some way. It's really beautiful, the message that I think the Lord has put on her heart to carry.
Yeah. Let's take a listen and we'll talk about it.
Awesome.
Okay, how do you personally create systems of accountability so that you can see your own blind spots as a leader?
We have to have multiple layers of accountability, especially as high-profile leaders, as pastors, shepherds. That's a non-negotiable. And so for me personally, I have people in my life who are 20 years older, 30 years older, people my own age, and they have permission at any time that I write something on social media, preach something that might not be theologically sharp or aligned, to, in truth, humility, and love, reach out and say, Natalie, I see your heart is really to minister here, but I believe you're causing a little bit of chaos or maybe unintentional harm. And it's always a sting, again, because my heart was not to do that or to mislead people, but to have those people I know are for me, praying for me, interceding for me, not just calling to correct me, but also to give words of affirmation and edification. Those people know they have permission to do that. And that's a trusted group of people. I don't just take that from unsolicited people on Instagram, right? But these are people who have my cell phone number, my email address, people who know my family, know my kids and my husband, my parents, to say, we've known you since you were a little girl and we believe what God's called you to, but we also want to see you do this for the next 30 years.
Right.
So this is for you, not to harm you, but to help you.
Okay, so let me play devil's advocate for a second and say, what do you say to the leader right now that says, well, we just have a generation that's more sensitive? And so they're offended more easily, or they are trying to muffle me in ways that have me handle people with gloves, and that's just not my style of talking. What do you say to different generations and how they view communication?
Well, communication is kindness. So we only can lead people that we know well. So if you don't know the people you're leading, you're not spending time with them in places like getting coffee and having time with family around tables, it's going to be really hard to correct people you don't know.
That's good.
And so as leaders, we have to be willing to get to know those we're leading in every generation, every age bracket, get to know their leadership styles, what triggers them, what also empowers them. And that takes time. And we don't get to be transactional leaders anymore. We're not managers. We're pastors. We're shepherds. Shepherds know the sound of their sheep, and sheep know the sound of their shepherds and the great shepherd. So our shepherding should sound a lot like the great shepherd in the way we lead people. And this is going to take time and relational equity.
Right.
So we can't correct people we don't know and truly love. And so I want to encourage all leaders, get to know the people you're leading. You've got to pastor people in and you got to pastor people out. We don't get it.
And that requires probably, and if they do have overly sensitive employees, they'll just have to work with that. Choose patience as the leader. Sometimes you have to have more patience and say, okay, let's figure out where that sensitivity is coming from and why you're so easily triggered by so many things. Maybe it's your coworkers. Maybe you are majoring in minors and focusing on everyone else's drama. And so now you're taking that on yourself. And so there are so many different levels as a leader that you're trying to pay attention to while making sure you lead yourself well.
Absolutely. And look, I've been the one who's been ultra sensitive. And
Same.
I have cried through meetings and I've cried when I've been corrected and I haven't liked being sat down, but I'm 46 and I'm here because people loved me enough
It's good.
to sit me down and let me cry in their office and not be understood and weep through my own insecurities. And so I get it. Like I'm with you. Like this is a very tender space to be young, to be in ministry, to be corrected.
Yep.
But man, when it's done well, we'll be in this for life.
Yes. I feel like I was the employee that was so focused on justice that if I saw something that looked like injustice across the department, I didn't have to even know the whole story. I just was like, oh, that was injustice. And I'm going to fight on behalf. And it took maturity for me to learn that, hey, you don't know all the nuances of that story or that relationship. And so your job is to focus on being the best you can be and you can support that person. But in the end, their problem is not your problem.
Pray, intercede, be the watchman on the wall, pray for your staff people and for your peers that there would be understanding and communication.
What even gives you the passion and purpose to even enter into work like this? I mean, what part of your journey and your story inspired you to say, hey, I really want to help people through that?
I think of how many times in the 46 years of being a pastor's kid in full-time ministry where I've wanted to quit. And it's been people who have spoken life over me that have reminded me God's not done with me yet. And as I've been doing that in the last 6 years of going into churches and looking at people and saying, I know you're tired, but Jesus didn't quit. He didn't give up on us. We're not going to give up either. And to have people write me emails and DMs and say, hey, your words reminded me that I'm in it to finish it. Like I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going. And then watching them flourish, watching them step into new roles, go to new churches and be healed, watching people heal and do the hard work of redemption and reconciliation, watching people who are angry at each other come together and have that moment of forgiveness, or those who don't get that moment, being able to release them to the Lord and watching them thrive after they've released those who have wounded them. And again, we're talking about church hurt, not church abuse. That's a different conversation.
Totally.
But for those who have been wounded by religion and by processes and by unintentional harm, to watch people heal has been one of the greatest gifts. And I will do this for the rest of my life because I truly believe we're going to start seeing prodigals coming home. We're going to start seeing people wounded, start to see the healed church, and they're going to be intrigued by that. And I want to be there for all of it. I want to see it.
Do you feel like you're seeing more healing happening all around? I mean, sure, there's still going to be the unfortunate tales of people doing really harmful things and not even being aware. But do you feel like there seems like online when you're watching clips that it seems like people are focused more on healing and making sure that they're doing what they need to do and trying to keep their mindset correct when trying to do this long term?
Yeah, and I'm watching people go to, biblical counseling. We're seeing it through spiritual direction, people taking sabbaticals. They're saying, look, I want to be in this 20 years from now. So they're doing the hard work of
took my first
healing.
sabbatical this year.
Well done.
Yeah, I did, and it has changed everything this fall.
We have to take care of our own temple so that we can then help other people. And I'm watching pastors do this, leaders, people who have been in this who said, hey, 10 years ago, I would have been bowing out, but now I'm running forward. I feel like John the Baptist sometimes when he's in prison, he writes, he's asking Jesus, like, are you really the one who's to come? Or like, or am I just in prison for nothing? Right.
Yep.
And what does Jesus do? He sends John the Baptist followers back to him and says, tell them all about the healings and the miracles. And he starts encouraging John the Baptist to say, you're on the right track.
Yep.
I feel like that's what I get to do in churches now. I'm around the global church in the UK and Ireland, and I'm going to these places and I'm seeing firsthand the goodness that's happening in the global church. And I'm going to churches and saying, guess what, guys? Like, this is happening here and healing's happening here and deliverance is happening here. Everyone just stay on course. We're going to get to the end of this and hear, well done, good and faithful servant. So that's what keeps me going.
I loved what she talks about, that, and I know I said this right before we played the clip, but like the idea that accountability is not church hurt.
Yeah.
And I know Joseph got there of like the whole, we're dealing with a lot of sensitive questions,
people.
but I think that there is something, I've been sharing this with our team a lot lately of like, we need to be okay with doing hard things, and maybe we can unpack that a little bit later. But I think there's two things here. Number one, if you're the one receiving that accountability, you get the choice of whether or not you define this as church hurt and you choose the offended route, or you choose this as, wait a minute, someone may love me enough to help me grow.
You may have like just made a lot of people angry by saying that, but it is true.
But it is a choice.
It doesn't matter.
Right?
It's true. Yes.
Now, I am not advocating for people who have truly been abused by leaders or totally belittled or whatever publicly. I mean, that is not accountability. Accountability is not belittling constantly in front of other people or being made fun of or whatnot. I think that's a really important thing to kind of call out.
Yeah.
But I do think that if someone in a private meeting is trying to encourage you, equip you, edify you, and trying to help you see something maybe you're blind to, that's accountability. That's leadership. That's growth.
Yeah. And it's so funny because people want the promotion. They want to be, well, people who are in leadership roles want leadership roles. Yes. But they don't want the criticism. They don't want the accountability, but that's what it takes.
Yeah, I've been sitting in
and
this.
be able to self-reflect.
I've been sitting in this a lot lately, and I actually think AI is kind of helping propagate this idea a little bit more. I think that we may be on the verge of losing the art of process.
Oh, yeah.
Of development.
Yes.
And I think that so often we just want the answer. We want the outcome. We want the thing. And something I actually did the other day, I was really, my wife and I were talking about parenting and how do we be better parents now that we've got 4 kids. Crazy. Pray for us. I actually went to AI and I said, hey, I don't want the answer. I don't want you just to give me scripture, but I want to see all the pieces of scripture that the Lord talks about parenting or, equipping the saints that are behind us or raising up a child or whatever. But the very first prompt I said was, I don't want you just to give me the answer. I want you to help me think how to know, or I want you to help me study this myself. And it was amazing because I started reading, I think it was Proverbs 1 months ago, and there was like a line in there that I like highlighted, and I was like, what does this mean? And I put it into AI, and it basically said, well, I'm not going to tell you since you didn't want the answer.
It's still pulled from your earlier
prompt. And it gave me like 7 or 8 steps of like, so go look up the root Hebrew word of this. Go look up this root Hebrew word. And I was like, this is what I wanted. Yeah. And I think so often we now live in a culture where AI knowledge is accessible. Right? The answer to anything is there. Whether you ask Alexa, Google, Claude, ChatGPT, I don't know what your flavor of choice is. You can get the answer almost instantly. Have we deprioritized the value or the process it takes to develop into knowledge, right? And I think that's where the difference between wisdom and knowledge. And I think that's what Natalie's.
It started when we were probably in high school of people being like, what's a Cliff Notes version?
Yes.
Where's the Spark Notes for that? Yeah. We didn't want to read the whole book to find the answers to homework. And it's funny because we're talking about how people want to go back to 90s technology and everyone's tired of all the digital and the quick, in some ways, we don't want the shortcut, but yet we still want the shortcut. Yeah. I think this is so relatable to working as a team, too. And for me, what sticks out, something Natalie said, was complain up, encourage down. Because I have been 100%. Convicted. I've had a lot of different jobs since I became an adult out of college. And I can look back and be like, I was that person who complained all the time to my coworkers or went home to my husband and just whined and complained about the people I didn't like or who I felt slighted by. Is that not what your spouse is for, just to like complain to? I think that's a portion of what their life is with, their spouse.
So much more in all of your marriages.
Yeah, but there are times where I was like, I don't want to be that person. Yeah. But yet, I needed to complain about it and I wanted to make things better. I felt the sense of justice of, this is wrong, and unless I complain about it, it won't be fixed. And so I love Natalie's advice because it took me years to understand, no one had ever said it like that. So it took me years to get to a spot where I'm like, the people, your coworkers are not there for you to complain to. They're there for you to encourage. Anyone who works under you is there to encourage. You take your criticism, which you're great at calling us out on this, not your just complaints, but solutions too.
Yeah, I always say, do not bring me problems unless you have a solution.
Yes.
Because the problems are not useful.
And those solutions you take up to the next person because there's someone who can do something about it.
Yeah, I'll never forget Dave Ramsey taught at a leadership conference this idea of what leadership is like. And he's like, if someone comes into your office and they say, hey, I have a problem, or hey, I need your help. One of those 2 lines, if you're a leader listening to this, you should think about this. you should imagine that person is bringing a monkey that is sitting on its shoulder, bouncing up and down into your office. Mm-hmm. And the moment that you respond to the, hey, I need your help, or I have a problem, or I need your insight here, that monkey just jumped from their shoulder onto your desk and is now bouncing up and down. Because when you respond, now that monkey is on your desk.
Yeah.
And he said, if you're not careful, leaders who aren't very aware of those lines will eventually find themselves at the end of the day with 15 monkeys jumping up and down on their desk and totally distracting them from the work that they thought they needed to get done that day. And so he says, instead, what I want you to do is I want you to ask the question back, well, what are some of the things you've thought about doing? Mm-hmm. And you're giving feedback or reaction or responses to their solutions, not taking their problem and going, great, I'll own this.
Yeah.
And I see this a lot in parenting with, I think, codependent parents. I see this a lot in friends of mine that want to sort of do everything for their kids. And I go, you are exchanging your sort of confidence that you are a good parent, and you're taking away their ownership of a problem.
You are just creating codependency, which is an actual issue.
And you're actually stealing from them, right?
Yeah,
and so what Dave Ramsey said to leaders, and I think just to put a bow on this, leaders need to see that monkey jumping up and down, and they need to make sure that monkey leaves in a cage being carried by your employee.
I was going to say, because you can't as a leader say, well, the monkey's ridiculous.
Correct.
The monkey's dumb. They just need to get rid of that monkey.
The problem's real. The monkey's real.
Yeah.
You just need to make sure it leaves with a cage or in a cage, not on your desk and they're walking out with no monkey anymore. And I think so often, I have done this so many times, and I'm so convicted even right now of like the number of times that I have had team members come to me and they'll have a challenge. I love solving problems. I get so energized by solving problems. And I actually think it's a gift I have to be able to solve problems or see sort of solutions maybe in a little bit of a different light. And so quickly I want to be like, oh, great. Yeah. Give me a new challenge. Like dopamine hit. Let's go. And I've actually ruined your ability to develop, to process, to actually work out that critical thinking, problem solving skill by just solving it yourself. And I think when I'm my best leader, when I'm my best self, I will reflect the question back to you. Well, what do you think? Let's work through this together. Let me help you kind of get there instead of just, solving it for you. Yeah.
And I just know the whole, again, complain up, encourage down. I think sometimes we forget, Natalie did not say this, but don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't want advice from. And I think we can do that easily with the people around us. I mean, we'll take criticism from your boss. You probably should. You need to learn and grow from that. But if you're upset with people in the workplace, and so you just want to go take all that, criticism up the chain to complain about them, and that accountability, you don't necessarily want to hold on to that. Think about it. Would you take advice from that person? Are they modeling a life you want?
I now think on the leader side, right? So like as a follower or an employee or someone who's underneath someone, that is great advice. Would you take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from?
Yeah.
I think the answer is no. But I think that's also a great reminder to all the leaders that are listening right now of, have you become the person,
the accountability piece,
that someone wants advice from?
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Are you a leader who has genuinely said, I want the best for you, and I will pause, I will take a day out of my schedule, I will get the meeting squeezed in when I need to because you matter?
Yeah.
Or have we made it so much about efficiency and what I want that your selfishness has actually caused others to go, I don't really want his advice because all it is high output, high volume, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think there's something for leaders to learn in that too. This actually reminds me of a great book that I read a couple of years ago called Extreme Ownership. Jocko Willink, he's a Navy SEAL. He's actually, I think, part of the SEAL Team 6 that extracted Osama bin Laden. That was SEAL Team 6.
You're asking me political questions.
If not, SEAL Team 6, that's what I know.
Yeah.
It was a great book.
He's a legit guy.
But one of the things that they, a little rule that they live by is he says that they have to start every debrief with, here is what I did wrong that could have impacted the mission. And essentially, before you can throw criticism to anyone else, you have to be able to self-reflect.
You have to own up, yeah.
And I think about that because I think maybe that is the first step in what I think the church or great leaders could do. Instead of just constantly, passing blame or moving things on, have you owned something? Yeah. If you haven't owned something, then how can you get someone else to own it?
Yeah.
And I'm just going to call them out because I'm one of you. I think technicians, production-minded people, we're the worst at this.
Well, and I think you have to have patience too for those people. And I'm the first one to be like, don't be such a sensitive baby. That's my attitude a lot of the time. But I think that some people have come from a very toxic place before where maybe there was church hurt that wasn't accountability, it was true hurt. Or another workplace and they're coming to the church for the first time in a job. And it was blame all the time. It was pointing fingers. It was you document everything so that, you don't get blamed for something because that was the culture in that workplace. And so I think sometimes people come with that attitude because that's what they were taught. That's almost self-preservation in some ways in a workplace. And we don't want the church to be that at all.
And it's sad because I actually feel like the more conversations I've had with people who are not leaders in the church, as we've done SALT 13, 14 years, I've had lots of conversations. And I hate to say it, but there are more cases than I would like to admit where the story that the church has in their environment, and this is not everyone's story, but I find it more common nowadays, that it's actually the opposite of this thing that Natalie just talks about.
I love that take. Please dive further into that.
I mean, Natalie's saying, complaints need to go up, encouragements need to come down. I actually think what I have heard from people in our community is that complaints actually are filtering down. Encouragement is flowing up. And here's why I think that. I think, and this is, hot take here, there are some environments that are super unhealthy. And this is where I think church hurt starts to come into play. I think that there is such a adoration, loyalty, respect for senior leadership that almost can't be questioned, that at times we want to encourage up because we're looking for accolades and praise to allow us to flatter our way.
That is a hot take. I'm so glad you brought this up. We can't critique leadership. We can't.
And unhealthy leaders will then critique down. They'll pass blame. They'll be like, "Oh, well, that wasn't my fault. That was his fault."
It's no one's place to hold them accountable. That's a great point.
And I think that, this points me back to Andrew Johnston, Dr. Johnston, Dr. Che, in our context. I never forget one of the earliest meetings we had, he got out a napkin and he drew a triangle and he had 3 points. On the bottom 2 points of this triangle was the leader and the team member. And then at the top, he drew a point and it was expectations. And he said, it is the team leader's job to clearly define the expectations, to clearly define what the hope or the outcome is that we want out of this project, out of this conversation, out of this meeting. It is the team member's job to fulfill said expectations. And too often we have an issue or we have temptation to not sort of confront the negativity or the give because we go, oh, well, I'm breaking the relationship between me and the team member. No. If you did your job well,
as a leader,
and you went up to the expectation, you set that clearly, then the problem is not between you and the team member. It's the fact that either you didn't set the expectation clearly or they didn't fulfill the expectation clearly.
And that's accountability.
And that is accountability. But when you as the leader don't set that expectation, then the only line you have to break is between you and the team member. And that's where all that emotion of I feel like. And so this is that idea of the reason that we need to encourage down and not encourage up is that as leaders, we need to set expectations very clearly. And we have to do the hard work of leading well so that we can encourage down to get them to live up to the standard, the vision, the challenge that we've set before them.
Yeah, you used you just commented a few examples of this, I feel like, in little ways. And I feel like if we're not practicing it in little ways, how are we going to practice it in big ways? And I just want to shout that out real fast. Someone has a booger in their nose. They got something stuck in their teeth. Before we started recording today, you had glitter on your face because you have 2 beautiful daughters and a wife, and glitter happens. If you can't call that out on someone, how are you going to call them out on the big things?
100%.
In a healthy, respectable way. But it's uncomfortable. Yeah.
And there's actually an interesting Harvard study that you can go research in 2022 that really talks about this. And it called me out because we don't give honest feedback when we clearly should because we think it's kindness. So we have wrapped kindness, and I think Natalie talks about that, right? That we've wrapped sort of politeness and kindness into why we are holding back. But we're actually, I think, it's the rawest form of selfishness. I'm not willing to say or do a hard thing to actually make you get better.
We think it'll embarrass them. But everyone can see it, and it's embarrassing, so help them out.
And the study that's the part that kind of has stuck with me is only 3% of people would ever call out. They're like, oh, there's lipstick in the wrong place or chocolate on your cheek or something that's obvious. Only 3% ever said anything.
And that means, I don't do fast math, 97% of people still saw the chocolate and the lipstick and the whatever else.
And just let it be.
They saw that.
And I feel like the higher the stakes, the less likely people were to speak up. And so, it goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier of I've been encouraging our team, we've got to be willing to do the hard things. There's an interesting thing just to unpack in the limited time we have There's a story I heard just the other day about a guy who is trying to reinvent education, and they're trying to basically teach in 2 hours what a lot of public education is doing in like 8 hours. And their metric they're trying to measure things by is they want students to want to be at school more than they want to be on vacation.
Whoa,
yeah.
that's a goal.
And as he unpacked this, he said, here's the truth. Successful people in the world actually want hard things in life.
Yeah.
If you are someone who says you don't want hard things and you just want to sit on a beach and read a book all day long, the truth of the matter is, you are going to be bored. You are going to be purposeless. There is a dopamine hit. There is a purpose. There is a fulfillment that happens when you do a hard thing and you accomplish it.
Yeah.
Now, there is failure when you do hard things and you can't. And that's where great leadership comes in. That's where being willing to say the hard things. You got to have a coach that's willing to say and keeping you accountable, not just church hurt, to say, hey, let's do hard things, and here's a roadmap to get there.
You're conditioning your mind. You're conditioning your body. It's self-discipline.
You talk about confidence. You talk about not having to deal with the sensitivities of a culture, because if you have a team that goes, we do hard things and we do it well, you can accomplish so much more as a team.
Yeah.
And there's so much more self-confidence in your team that honestly, everybody in the world will want your team if your whole team gets to that point.
Yeah, I love that. It's not just you, it's your team.
Yeah.
Let's get our team there. We've had this weird tradition now since starting this new season to have a challenge at the end of every episode.
I'm going to flip it then. What is your challenge?
My challenge is go find one hard thing you can do.
Okay.
And I don't mean, to define it a little bit.
Intentionally hard.
It has to be intentionally hard. It has to be that thing you've been like, ugh, I hate that. It's hard. Go do it.
Yeah.
Go do it. All right. And
That's
then
the pod.
come see us in October at conference and tell us about it.
All right. So October, salt2026.com. And if you haven't already, make sure you go join us on YouTube, subscribe, share with a friend. If this conversation meant something to you, or there was something that kind of sparked a conversation, share with a friend and say, hey, listen to, minute 12 or whatever.
Yeah.
We want to do this so that we spark conversation. We spark community. That's really at the heart of everything we do.
That's the pod. See you next week.
See y'all.